Hello guys, we're here to talk about our current training cycle. We're about to enter week 5 of probably the longest cycle we have ever had. It's a 12-week cycle and we're basically approaching the halfway mark. The objective of this video and this update is just to give you guys a few reminders and bring your attention to a few things that are going to be coming up in the next following weeks, including some slight changes to the format of the program and when we're going to expect to see some of the testing. So first and foremost, remember where we are in the season. We've just finished the competitive season, which meant we did 16 to 24 weeks of higher intensity work, lots of metabolic conditioning. Our strength during that time kind of went on a bit of a decline. And it's important that we use this first cycle of the new season to get ourselves healthy again and to prioritize the things that we haven't been doing much of in the competitive season. So that for us, the main thing is developing our absolute strength once again. And what we mean by that is developing our top end strength in our more classical lifts like the squat, deadlift, bench press, and the pull-up. Those are our 4 testing priorities across all of our training groups. For more information, make sure you read the initial post that went out talking about the whole cycle. We dive into loads of detail there, as well as a written format here where we remind you guys of what the actual tests of each of our training groups is going to be. Now, a few important updates that are going to be coming up. Week 6 of this cycle, we're currently starting week 5. We're going to be deloading our main lifts. So the squat, the bench, the deadlift and the pull-up. You're going to see a reduction in intensity. You're going to still see variations of those movements in the program, but the idea is to pull back for a week, let our body heal and recover from the 5 weeks of progressive overload that we've done before that, which is tough, that's a long time, so that we can get back to making progressions with those lifts again. If we don't have that little deload and we're just trying to progressively overload every single week, we're probably going to run into some form of plateau or experience some form of burnout before we actually get to our testing date, which is not what we want. In week 7, we're going to be making quite a big change to the Live, Perform, Compete program in terms of when we're doing our squatting and our deadlifting. To start this cycle, you will have noticed that we are doing an A-B template, and every other week, the day that we squat and the day that we deadlift changes. And the feedback has been from quite a lot of people around the world is that it's quite tough to do the back-to-back days when you deadlift on a Friday and you deadlift again on the Monday. The same can be said for when we back squat on the Friday and then we back squat again on the Monday in those consecutive weeks. So because our loads are going to be getting heavier in week 7, we're going to start to change that up. So rather than the alternating template, we're going to stick with the following. We are going to be doing our deadlifts on a Monday from week 7 onwards, and we're going to be doing our back squats on a Friday from week 7 onwards. So those will not change. You'll always expect to do those lifts on those days, which means you're going to get a nice big 6 days of recovery before you have to do that lift again. That should allow us just to recover a little bit better and make even more progress at the final part of the cycle. In terms of testing dates, we're going to be spreading our testing over a 2 to 3 week period. The reason for this is that when we do lots of strength testing all in the same week, it can be really punishing on the nervous system and basically mean that we can't get much more training in the week. We're all going to have to make all the other training a lot easier in order to adapt and recover from the testing. So in week 9 of the cycle, that's when we're going to be doing our bench press testing. That will be for all training groups, Live, Perform, Compete, and Elite. In week 10, the following week, we're going to be testing our deadlift and our strict pull-up. That's going to be for all training groups. And in week 11, we're going to be doing our back squat testing. On week 12, we're going to be testing our 5K run. That applies to the Elite program only. After week 12, we're then going to be starting a new training cycle, and we're going to get you guys loads of updates before then. To finish off, just a few reminders as to what we're doing right now and why we're doing it. I've already talked about the concept of the competitive season just finishing and what this cycle needs to resemble. This is essentially the very first cycle of the entire year. So we have to build really strong foundations now if we want to express more strength and power capacity in the year with things like our 1-rep maxes of the classical lifts like we're doing, but also 1-rep maxes of things like our Olympic lifts. The stronger the foundations, the more resilient we're going to be, and the more we're going to be able to express, strength and power later down the line. But also in terms of our conditioning work, we are doing just generally like longer, low intensity work on the Tuesday. Again, that's just all about building foundations. We have clear strength testing priorities in this cycle. And when you have clear strength testing priorities, it's really important that the training is specific to those testing priorities. So because we've set out exactly what we're going to be testing and how many reps we're going to be testing, it's really important that we have little variation of those movements over the 12-week cycle. So we are taking what we call a linear progressive approach to this, where each week we're just trying to make those lifts a little bit harder. We're adding a little bit more intensity or a little bit more volume to those lifts each week. So by the end of the cycle, when it comes to testing day, we have prepared ourselves and accumulated more volume and more intensity so that we can hit hopefully maybe a new PR, or at least express, something close to it. That means that expect to see less or little variations on those 4 testing priorities, but everything else within the program, expect to see more variation, because essentially everything else that we're not testing is kind of in maintenance mode. So you will see a lot more changes within the program there. It's also really important to remember that we are prioritizing strength work. That's probably why you're going to see a little bit less conditioning in the program, especially if you're with us, in the competitive season or leading into the competitive season, kind of from January onwards. And that's deliberate. We want to put more energy and resources towards getting strong right now. So the conditioning work, you're only really going to see it on a Tuesday. Obviously, our Saturday testers are going to be biased towards conditioning work as well. And then you're going to see small little bits of conditioning spread throughout the week, maybe more as like metabolic conditioning finishes. But remember, those are not the priority of the program. So just make sure you're hitting those with quality, getting your heart rate up, making sure you're touching on all the skills that we're including there, so you're not forgetting what intensity in terms of conditioning actually feels like. Moving on, accessory programs. Remember, you guys have access to all our accessory programs, the barbell accessory, the gymnastics accessory, the endurance accessory, and every day you have included in the main program the general accessory. And that's going to be really based around like bodybuilding, functional bodybuilding, keeping us healthy, movement work, potentially additional aerobic conditioning and some skill work. Make sure you are choosing the one that most applies to you. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be something that's a weakness of yours. It might just be doing something that feels best for you at this point in time right now. If you do, or you are finishing your sessions, you're feeling like you've got more energy and things to give towards the program, then by all means, attack your weaknesses and use this point in the season to make sure you're making improvements there. But remember, you have 2 sessions a week on all those programs. We put them into program on a Monday and Friday, but they can be done any day. We just would recommend not doing them back-to-back days. Remember, our Olympic lifting is kind of in maintenance mode right now. The idea here is that we want to focus on getting really strong with our kind of slower, more conventional lifts. Whilst we're doing that, we're working on technique of things like the snatch. For our elite guys, the clean and the jerk. And then when we get into our next cycle after this 12 weeks, that's when we'll start to bring everything back together. So if we've got stronger foundations in 12 weeks time, and then we start to kind of piece together all the technique work we've been doing, that's when we're going to go towards or aim for some heavier Olympic lifting. So be patient. Don't worry, don't fret when you don't see much heavy Olympic lifting in the program. There is a reason for it. Remember, we cannot improve everything at once. That model just means that your progress is going to be really, really slow over time. Things like higher skill gymnastics, that is also in maintenance mode right now. So you're going to see that kind of like dripped into Metcons, in your EMOMs. Saturday testers, we're definitely going to be including a lot more of that kind of stuff on Saturday testers because we know you're not getting it within the week. But again, don't fret. If you know that high skill gymnastics is something that you really want to work on this season and improve, you are going to get your chance to do that next cycle. Or if you really want it right now, make sure you're doing the accessory work or finding an accessory program, the gymnastics accessory program, which is going to expose you to those skills a bit more and as well as build the foundations to allow you to express those skills a little bit later down the line. As always, guys, it's super important that you understand the why, the what, and the how behind the programming. If you can understand that, it's going to allow you to get so much more out of the program. If anything I said today didn't make sense or you have more questions, you can always reach out to any of our coaching team here, and we would be more than happy to help navigate or help answer your questions. Until then, guys, it's only week 5. We've still got 7 more weeks to go. Keep on doing everything you can to maximize recovery. Stay true to course, trust the process. Love your work.